This is the old bridge that the Scottish Army used to cross the River Esk at Musselburgh on the morning of the Battle of Pinkie, 1547. This is St Michael's Kirk, which was the position that the English were trying to get to set their heavy guns up here to bombard the Scottish camp, which was over the other side of the River Esk in Musselburgh. But they never made it here because the Scots had already crossed the Esk and were drawn up for battle at Pinkie. And that's where the battle would happen. So just under 500 years ago, this was a bloodbath. Scottish Army lined up roughly where this train line is. English Army up towards the high ground, and they clashed in these fields here. So that's Carberry Hill up there, and that's Farside Castle up there. English Army was up there. Scots were down here, and they clashed in these fields here. Pinkie, 1547. Up there was also the Battle of Carberry Hill 20 years later, where Mary Queen of Scots surrendered herself over to the Confederate Lords of Scotland. On the morning of the battle, the English were making for that church spire there because the Scots were on the other side of the Esk on a defensive position in Musselburgh. The English were going to bombard them from there, but they then came across the Scottish Army, which was lined up along this tree line, and they had to have a change of plan. The Scots Army was lined up on this tree line here. The English Army moved down off this hill to another position. So the Scots were moving across these fields to take up this high ground, which would have cut the English off from their supplies, ships and navy, which were out here. It would have cut them off from their route back south, effectively trapping them. But the English realised what was happening, moved back over this side, sent their cavalry in, which stopped the Scottish advance, and the Scots were in for it after that. The English navy would have been out there bombarding the left flank of the Scots, who then moved more across this side, which caused a bit of confusion. But the Scottish Army, maybe about 20,000 or more strong, stretched for a kilometre along here. English Army was up here on the hillside. Originally the Scottish Army was in Musselburgh, but moved over the Esk to that position down there. This was one of the first battles where the navy and an army combined together against another army. So the English Army would have been up here in the hills where I am. Scottish Army would have been down on that tree line with Musselburgh behind, and then you can see Leith away in the distance there, which is where the survivors, if they made it, ended up about 5 miles away. Most of the fighting taking place in these fields here. That's the A1 there, Arthur's Seat, Musselburgh behind those trees. And in 1547 there was a large Scottish army lined up where those trees are, and where I am there was an English army. And there was also English ships out there armed with cannons bombarding the Scottish army from there. Most of the fighting took place in these fields between the two sides. The Scots fell back. Unfortunately, the River Esk is behind them. A lot of them drowned in there. They were forced all the way back towards Leith. I believe there was about 10,000 slaughtered. Big defeat for Scotland that day. The reason for the battle: the English wanted Edward VI to marry Mary Queen of Scots, but the Scots didn't fancy it. But in another 50 years, the crowns would be united.